You are now listening to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We preserve the history and sport of hunting through curious conversation and action-packed hunts, as well as offering you tips and strategy for more successful hunts. The Hunter's Advantage podcast is powered by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. Out on a Limb is a family-owned company based right here in Oklahoma that makes tree stands, saddle platforms, climbing sticks, and so much more.
Christian, I have a quick question.
What's that?
What bites down harder, a hippo or an alligator?
No idea.
It's a trick question. The Ridge Runner 2.0 bites harder than both of them. But all jokes aside, we use these products all across the land on public or private. These help us get into any tree we want and hunt where the deer actually are.
Most men go to the grocery store for their meat, but these products help you go to God's grocery store. I have used the Out on a Limb Ridge Runner 2.0 and the Shakar sticks for the last few years hunting public land bucks, and I've actually shot several bucks out of this setup. If you want to support the podcast and get some Out on a Limb equipment, make sure to go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 for 10% off at checkout. Once again, if you want to support the podcast, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA10 at checkout for 10% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. We are here live with Christy and Payton and myself. So what's going on with you two? And how are y'all's December been? Is that how you say it?
I guess. I haven't got to hunt at all in December. It's
Nice.
the 11th. Carol's been on waterfowl grind, right?
Yes, sir. I remembered why I quit deer hunting and went to that really quickly.
Why is that?
Deer hunting, just I'm tired of being quiet, cold, and seeing nothing with four legs.
It does take some skill. I mean, duck hunting, you put one decoy out, you hit a couple quacks, and just here they come. You know, it's just it's about how it works.
They always don't come because they see me with the gun in my hand and they're like, better not go over there. Maybe that's what the deer are doing too.
Were you not hunting in Western Oklahoma for deer?
No, that was, I don't even remember when that was. That was a few weeks ago. That was the last
Thanksgiving.
time I went. Yeah.
That's the last time
Yeah.
you've been deer hunting, Carol?
Yep.
Before
Man.
Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Well, you've been just as fruitful as me, I guess. So since we are creeping up on mid-December, between now and the season opener, I'm sure a lot of people have either had encounters or maybe even, maybe even someone's got, lucky enough to release an arrow or two. And I'm sure some are great shots, but if you're anything like us, they're probably horrible shots. Today, I feel like enough time's gone by where people have those, has been put through the ringer, I guess. And so, I guess we can just talk about the different shot scenarios and then kind of run through our mistakes from this year and then years past. Does it sound good with you guys or no?
I'm down.
Yes, sir.
Got plenty of examples. Just watch a kill shot video. You'll see plenty of examples.
Dude.
So we have a kill shot video on YouTube
I was
that
about to
has
say that.
750,000 views now. And I think there's 20 something kills on it, 28 or 29. There might even be 30. But there was one comment that really irked me. He said, there wasn't a single kill shot on this video. That's what the guy said. First of all, I went back and I rewatched the video immediately when he said that. And I counted. I was like, there was at least 20 that were like, yeah, for sure you're getting that one. But there were a few that were like, okay, you never know.
I
That sort
feel
of
like
situation.
more people make bad shots or that look like they have bad shots, even if they find the deer. Because let's say you don't record your hunts, right? And then you shoot the deer, you make an I don't know shot, like I think it was good, but might have been a little bit far back, might have been a little high. I'm not sure. Well, how many of those people, even if it's after a treacherous blood trail, they're like, well, I got them, and they look, and it's not the entry and exit's not anywhere close to being like where one would pinpoint on a little grid, like, hey, I want to hit it here. They're not making those shots at all. All they're saying is, well, I found the buck though. And then, obviously they're laying their bow on where they actually the entry hole is. And so during the pictures, it looked like you can't tell where you hit it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that do that. Exactly. And then
They're like, put my crossbow away, bring me my compound.
Well, I only speak in manly terms, but yeah. So
I mean, that's exactly how it works, though. That's what people do. It's very easy to criticize when you don't ever publish anything. I mean, if you could
Right.
see some of the things I've seen from the ages of 8 to 17 years old on bad shots and mistakes, if those were on video, I wouldn't have any reputation at left to be destroyed. Like, not like I do now, anyways. But everybody is so humble or holier than thou when they get on, like, I've never made that shot. I'm like, first of all, dude, I watched you shoot your bow on your TikTok and you hit the trigger like it owed you money. So there's no way that you're just
Listen,
hammering every deer that you shoot.
I had a guy told me I look like I got struck by lightning whenever I released the trigger. So I just learned you can't do anything right.
I saw a good one on Facebook yesterday. It was a guy who was like, I'd like to thank Stan Archery and I'd like to thank Bowtech. And he said, one of the things I like to do in the middle of November, when he said, I like to practice and make sure I'm hot. And I'm like, okay, you shot out at 2 of your sponsors. I'm with you. He pulls back and he's got a handheld release. So I'm like, okay, he's probably going to, execute a good shot. He goes from about this far away, bam. And he's like, you got to say practice up. I'm like, that doesn't take any practice. That right there, that takes no practice.
He was practicing for the rut. You know what I mean? Like, meh, 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 and you just got to
And then-
absolutely slam that trigger. That's what he's practicing for, probably.
Yeah, but on the vein of shot selection, it's a hilarious topic because we put a YouTube video out the other day, and everybody knows. I feel like it's a lot of people know what to do, or maybe they don't, but it's just hilarious because no one that ever films their hunt has ever made a bad shot, and I know 98% of the shots in the wild are not good shots. Most of them.
No, they're just I agree. So maybe there are some new listeners just now getting into the hunting space where it's just like, hey, I don't know what a good shot is, what it's supposed to look like. Yeah, I've seen some videos. I know they're supposed to be broadside, but anything other than that, what do I do? Because something I've kind of realized is like there's a lot more, what do they call those, onset hunters, and they're like maybe late 20s, early 30s, or even older that are getting into hunting because some of the recent videos we made, there's a lot of people that's like, hey, I'm 32 years old, just getting into hunting, yada, yada, yada. And so whatever it is, I mean, so I think this could be somewhat beneficial. I mean,
well,
I'm not saying
you learn every season too. I learned something every year about shot selection that I did not know the year before.
100%. And plus like stuff changes too. Cause like now it's like, okay, you think you got, you know how to execute a good shot and pick good shots. Let's say when you're in a climber or a tree stand, but let's say something new and exciting comes out, like let's say saddle hunting. It's like, okay, how do I execute an ethical good shot from a saddle now? And so like stuff is ever changing. And I mean, you could even go to like from ground hunting to setting up in a tree. I don't know. I just feel like it's good to talk about.
It's something you could do a podcast over every year for the end of time and still learn something.
Probably.
So yeah, I agree. If we made a bad shot, you would never see it because we wouldn't put that video footage out. Actually, I think one of our mistakes is putting out the mistakes because then people are really, really critical. And it's like, hey, and I put it out there. If I make a bad shot, I'm not going to be like, oh, nope, smoked him. I've got criticized a lot for shooting deer multiple times. And like,
people do that with elk though. Like, you see
100%.
people on YouTube with their rifles and stuff. Now, I'm not knocking rifle hunters when it comes to elk hunting because heck, I would gladly take one of those bad boys. But you'll see them shoot them and basically till they fall. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a lot of the outfitters and stuff motto.
Yeah, 100%. And I do that with a bow too.
Yeah, why would you not? Why would you not?
I don't know.
It's
like
me.
The video of the 6x7.
I'm not the one talking crap here, Carol. Okay, so quit questioning me.
Yeah. Well, the video of the 6x7, I shoot him and that arrow deflects off the ribs and doesn't even get into the cavity. And then I shot him again really far back in almost the back hind quarter. And that was what ended up killing him. And there were several comments on that video of people saying, well, why'd you shoot him the second time? That didn't look like an ethical shot. And from my perspective, anytime you shoot a deer, if it's going to stand there and let you shoot it again, I'd shoot it 5 more times if it let you.
Let's just start there then. So obviously, yeah, I'm not even going to dive into that yet. Let's just start from there. So let's say you do arrow a deer. Does that change kind of where your second shot's going to go? So like obviously for the second shot, you'd like it to still be broadside or somewhat quartered two wore away just slightly, like that's still okay. But if you already have an arrow in a deer, is it let's just see what else we can hit, or is it like one of those where it's not that big of a deal, kind of where you hit? Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah.
I've never had a deer that stuck around.
All right, Mr. Perfect, I'll go.
I've never had a deer give me another shot. If I hit them, they're always like, "See ya." So,
well, they used to do that in the backstrap or the leg. So I'm just kidding.
No,
I don't think I've hit one. Oh yeah, I did hit. I've only hit one deer, I think, in the backstrap, and it
I was there.
didn't go well. Yeah, it
I remember.
didn't go well.
Carol, these two bucks walk in. We're hunting public. We get to hunt for like one morning, and it's like before an Oklahoma State game. So these two bucks come in, and the first one's probably like 90 inches. The second one's like maybe 100. Like they're both like, decent. And Carol's like, should I shoot that one? I was like, hell yeah. I said, you shoot that one. I'm gonna shoot the second one. And then so the first one comes in, and Carol shoots it, and shish kebabs. And he's like, we're not finding that one. The other one runs off, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so either. That was funny.
Yeah, I just remember I was like, "How far?" And I was like, 30. I was like, I put my 30 on him, and I was like, we stepped it off. I was like, it wasn't 30.
It was 20 something.
Yeah, it was like mid 20s. I'm like, it happened.
Yeah. No, if you shoot an animal and you get an arrow or a bullet or anything else in them, I think the ethical thing to do is to shoot them again, regardless of where you're hitting them on the second shot. I think ethics kind of go, once there's a projectile or a broadhead or an arrow in an animal, your ethics kind of go out of the realm at that point, because you've already struck the animal, and the point is to put it down. Like obviously, if you barely graze it or something, should you shoot at it at 75 yards? Probably not, as a follow-up, if that's not in your range. Or I wouldn't take that as far as people take things very literally. I wouldn't take that as far as if you shoot one in the back hip and you get an inch of penetration, should you shoot it in the head if it gives you a shot at 30 yards? No, probably not. I don't mean throw all ethics out the window, but
use a little bit of common sense.
But I think absolutely, because I've seen several scenarios. Even the 7x5, the biggest buck I've ever shot on October 30th this year, I shot him at, I think it was like 19 yards, and hit him. I mean, absolutely perfect, but he ran and fell over and like did a flip and kind of acted like he was going to stand back up. So I was like, well, I'm going to shoot him again, so I shot him one more time. Did that matter? No, I didn't even really make a good shot. I just grazed him kind of, but I just don't see I don't see very many scenarios, except for shots outside of your ethical range, where I don't see a good reason not to shoot a deer another time, because if the goal is to put the deer down as quickly and as ethically as possible, you hit one single lung, it's not going to be any more ethical to put one through the guts or put one through the liver or hit it in the shoulder. Like I don't see the downsides to that. I mean, maybe it doesn't make good TV, it doesn't make a good video, but apart from that, I don't really see the reason not to.
Talking to Mr. Perfect now, Carol, for the new onset hunters or whatever, can you describe the ideal scenario of shooting one with the manly bow and arrow?
Yes, I mean, ideal would be 20 yards broadside. What is it? Head up, head down is when they seem to duck a little more, I guess, is the research that I've listened to. Upwind, you have to put yourself in a position to have success. We really try to stay out of places when the wind's not correct. So we do everything we can to set ourselves up perfectly, but the deer also have to do their part. One of the biggest things that I emphasize of practice and practice and practice, and I practice a lot before season, but when you punch that trigger, it's not in your hands really anymore. So just do what you can to give yourself the most success. But like I said, ideal, long story short, set yourself up. You have a clear shot, don't rush things. I had that problem this year where I watched the biggest buck of my life walk by, didn't get a shot. So another big buck came in, and I thought, well, he's going to do the same thing. So I rushed it. Deer might not be perfectly broadside, but if it's not an ethical shot, it's worth letting him go. It's worth letting him go. Maybe he comes back, or maybe if you wait one more minute, he does turn broadside. So long story short, that's the most ideal situation.
Mm-hmm. So from the perfect ideal scenario to maybe one that's just completely ass facing away to you walking away, where do you guys usually draw the line in between like, hey, I'm going to try to squeeze it right there, or I should probably wait and try to either be patient, or maybe if that deer's walking out of your life, hopefully have another encounter with them? When do you elect to like not shoot?
I mean, I go through checklist in my head of right off the bat when I see a deer of shooter, yes or no. Check. Is he a shooter? Okay. When is he going to give me that shot? My going through my checklist is can I kill this deer right here, right now, if I hit him perfect? Yeah, I'm a risk it for the biscuit, obviously. If I think that I can, I'm going to, but I have to have full confidence, that hey, I can put a lethal shot. Like let's say he's, walking directly away. No, that's not really an ideal situation to where you could get him, in an artery and say, hey, best case scenario, I'm relying on luck. I don't think that's ethical, but at the same time, it's just up to you of for me personally of can I kill this deer? Yes or no.
So where do you, as a hunter who's been hunting a few years, like where do you draw that line? Like, is it I guess in a degree, if people's watching this on YouTube where they can see the visual, if this is completely walking away and this is quartered away, and you're back here, where are you taking that shot? Like how far quartered away, how far quartered to? Like, are you drawing that line, or it's like I'm not going to pull the trigger?
I mean, there's not really a good answer because there's so many situations and scenarios that can go. A heavier arrow, you can get a better pass through. I mean, it's going to be different for each person. For me, if I have a shot at the vitals, and he's not too far away. Let's say I'm fairly decent up to 40 yards. For me personally, it's hey, could I hit vitals here? Yes, I'm taking that shot. But if it's a hey, I have to rely on luck to get vitals here, no, I'm not. There's not really a specific answer. If I'm shooting a piss missile, then that limits it down. If he's any quartered away, then it's like, well, I can't take that shot at all because if I hit any bone or anything like that. So like I said, there's not really a good answer. It just strikes me of can I harvest this deer? Yes or no. If I have the confidence I can, then I will pull the trigger.
I think the older you get and the more deer that you kill, the less desperate you get to like make a bad shot on one. Because if you asked me this question 5 years ago, the answer would be like, if
Send
I
it.
see a piece of hide, it would have been something stupid like that. But
Yeah.
it's the more you shoot, the more I shoot, the more I want it to be perfect. Like I want them to be perfectly broadside, not only perfectly broadside with that front leg forward, not back. I want them to take that extra step that exposes everything in there. And I mean, I'm to the point now where I don't know if I'd take like a super hard quartering away shot at 40 plus yards when a few years ago I think I probably would have.
You saying you wouldn't now?
I don't know. It depends how big it is. I mean,
That was literally, I was trying to bait you into that because my next question would have been like, what if it was a 200?
I hate that that's the case, but I think everybody would say if you see a once in a lifetime deer, you'd probably just try to make it happen. But no, I mean, ideally something like less than 45-degree quarter. I think the quarter two worries me a lot more than a quartering away shot because the quartering
Oh,
away shot,
actually,
yeah, just because the quartering away shot, you have a lot of real estate to do some damage, whereas the quartering two shot, you kind of have to get through some things before you get to the goods. Even though the goodies are all right there and it doesn't take a ton of penetration, I think with angles and skips and stuff, you kind of when you bring the shoulder into play, like weird things can happen. Even shooting a heavy arrow and a single bevel broadhead, like for the buck I shot in Kansas is an example. Like uh, I shot him right behind the shoulder, quartering to probably like 30-ish degrees, and I shot him behind the shoulder because I didn't want to shoot him in the shoulder, and it ended up going like behind the shoulder and exiting out the rear hip. A better shot placement on that deer probably would have been in the shoulder, but
Mhm.
I wasn't super confident with the setup that I had, so I didn't shoot him in the shoulder. But no, I mean, I think the older you get, the more I want it to be perfect. It's a lot easier when you're hunting a Marlboro or a corn feeder, like when you got their attention, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, I'll wait a second. He's not like going to stand up and run away. But when you're hunting them on some sort of ag or just over some natural browse or something like that, like it's a little bit different. I'd be more opt to take a more, not a marginal shot, but a shot that isn't as ideal. I think on public, you kind of just have to make it happen sometimes. Like sometimes there's not gonna be a perfect angle, or he's not gonna walk exactly where you want him to. I feel like it's a lot easier to make a shot when they're sitting there preoccupied.
I think a lot of the shot selection, kind of going off of what Carol was saying, has to do with distance. Because I mean, directly under your stand at 2 yards, the deer could be whichever angle you want it, and I'm probably going to try to slide an arrow through that deer, regardless if it's facing directly away from me under my stand, or whether it's like, I have horizontal real estate or vertical real estate, depending on which way it's facing. And the more distance you have in between you and the deer, I think it needs to be more broadside. So I think anything basically over 40 would probably need to be as broadside as it can be. And then anything like under that, that's when it can start getting a little bit more marginal, the closer it gets to you. Because if it's at 10 yards and if I have one damn near quartered to me almost all the way, I'm going to try to slide that. Again, depends on the situation. I'm going to try to slide that bad boy like somewhere up in here, just because it's at 10 yards. Like, how much more can you ask for?
Well, and like you said, any distance that you introduce into the scenario is just something. The longer that the arrow or bullet's in the air, the more things that can go wrong. And the closer they are, like the less likely they're going to make any movement or be able to get out of the way, and probably the more likely you're going to make a better shot. It's just easier when the target's a lot closer. I agree with you though, because anything past 30, like I don't know if I'm taking a quartering 2 at 30, like 30 plus. I'd take a quartering away at 30 plus, but I don't know about a quartering 2. I guess you also have to consider your arrow system and what you're shooting. Like how have I set up my setup with my draw length and my draw weight and my arrow and my broadhead selection that gives me the most ability to penetrate some sort of bone or encounter a B minus shot or a C type of shot. Like you have to consider that too. Because there's a lot of folks that run mechanicals, and I'm not anti-mechanical. I probably killed 80% of the deer that I've ever shot with a mechanical. But there's a lot of folks that run that as their insurance policy, but that does not give you a very good insurance policy on a quartering 2. Or honestly,
or really a quartering away.
I think a quartering away too, just because I talked to a lot of trackers about that quartering away shot. And you're basically shooting into like a basketball net, but just imagine taking 20 of them and sticking them together. That's what you're shooting into.
The example I heard is like when you take those quartering away shots, especially with an expandable, it's like shooting through like an old target bag that you have. And as soon as that mechanical opens, like you're not going to get very much penetration. I mean, if anyone's cheap like me and tried to just to see how your mechanical is going to fly, and you shoot it into just a regular bag target, you don't get a pass through on there, regardless of how close you shoot to it. Like it can be 10 yards. It's like, I'm not going to pass through this bag with this mechanical, unlike your field points or maybe some of your more fixed blade that, that sucker will zip right through it. And you got to go find your heads out in the pasture just because, it punches through it. But yeah, you do not whatsoever even get close to very much penetration, I think, like on the quartered away shots.
Well, I think we've created, and maybe we's not the right pronoun or whatever, but I think generally speaking, folks are okay with the you just got to get an arrow into them kind of mentality. Like you just got to get an arrow in them. Like it doesn't.
I think that's the first step, and like that's the first thing people try to do whenever they get into hunting, because me and you talked about this before when we first got into bow hunting. We thought the biggest challenge was just hitting the deer.
It was the biggest challenge at the time.
Exactly. But once you hit the deer, and then it opens your eyes to, oh, I have to hit it good in order to find it. Because I remember the first one, the first deer I ever hit with the bow and arrow, I hit in the leg, and I heard a big loud pop. I seen it kind of run away weird, and I was like, I got that sucker. I got it. I found a little drop of blood, maybe the size of my pinky nail, and that was it. And thinking about it now, the leg was dangly, and I was like, I just made that thing a tripod is all I did.
That's terrible.
I mean, but it's learning.
Well, I saw there was a podcast clip that we were posted. I used repurpose to post, and it was you talking about, like you said, yeah, I shot at 4 deer before I ever like killed one with a bow or something like that.
At 10 yards, 100%.
Yeah. And there was a guy in there that said, my dad wouldn't let me go out unless I was proficient with my weapon. And he said, if I shot at 1 deer, I'd get banned from hunting for like 3 weeks before I could go out again. I was proficient. I'm like, well, I guess you had better mentors than me, because that's not how it works. I mean, a lot of people are not that way. They don't have Cam Haines as their
I used my dad's I used my dad's old PSC, and I took as many of his old aluminum arrows that were all different shapes and sizes as I could. And he knew what I was doing, and he was like, I don't see a problem with that. Just because, like, I mean, he wasn't much of a bow hunter himself, but I mean, if you're learning from people who mainly bow or gun hunt, and you're trying to do something that at least no one in your family is like really super familiar with. It's like, hey, here's a list of do's and don'ts, have fun. And you're just trying to like build up this knowledge by yourself. I mean, you will have more screw ups than success, like out of the gate.
Oh, by the way, in 2008 or 9 or 10, YouTube there wasn't a ranch fair.
Oh no, we had dial up.
There wasn't a YouTube video to watch about shot selection. You watch the TV show, they never show you anything that goes wrong. So you go out and you shoot your miss one, you hit one in the leg. You're like, I guess I'm just the worst hunter that's ever lived in society.
I need a new bow. This bow sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just think that you're the worst guy in society. And then you get on, fast forward 15 years later on YouTube, like, yeah, you're going to see crappy shots all the time. And people put that stuff on there, and it's whatever. Like, yeah, cool, be transparent. But back in the day, there wasn't no where to. I'm not saying back in the day like I'm super old, because I'm not. That's hilarious. But you couldn't get on YouTube and learn about broadheads or arrows or draw length. Dude, I didn't shoot the correct draw length till like 6 years into bow hunting. I remember my arm was like this, like the first 3 bows that I shot. And I remember going to deer camp and people saying that shot bows more than we did. Like, I told my uncle Justin, are you ever going to get him a bow that's the right draw length? And Justin's answer was, I'm not his dad. That's what he said. I'm not his dad. His dad should get him one. And I was like, well, true. That's true.
The best hunter that I knew at the time, who I got my old Matthew switchback from, he didn't even have the right draw length on that bow that he sold me. It wasn't even ever set up for him, I don't think, because he's a long, lanky dude, and that bow was short for me. And so I shot that bow until 2020. I didn't get a correct draw length, which I still think mine's a little bit short, but I mean, until 3 years ago. But yeah, I remember back in the day, like, we had dial-up internet, and I lived out in the country, so good luck with that, even if no one was on the phone. And I remember trying to watch how to build a squirrel trap, because I wanted to try to build something where I could like catch squirrels. I don't know why, but I started trying to load that video on YouTube, and me and my mom went to Walmart because she had to go run around, do errands or whatever. By the time I got back, 2 seconds, I was able to watch 2 seconds of that video. And so that was out of the picture. So I don't know. That is kind of crazy how technology has came and kind of shaped hunting the way it is.
Dude, I know people that have never shot a buck before that are telling me how to kill a buck. They're like, yeah, you need to be looking for this and this. I'm like, you ever shot one? No. I'm like, then shut up. Like, don't tell me what to do.
And also at the same time, since we weren't able like to consume YouTube and like all these different like real life scenarios that happen, whether people miss or make a bad shot, didn't find the deer, there wasn't any of that. The only like things that we soaked up was on the Outdoor Channel or something. If we were over at like an uncle's house and they were watching Outdoor Channel, had their juries on or something like that. And obviously that's actual television. That's a television show. So it would be, I would say, bad for their ratings at the time. Like, it just wasn't something I don't think was super popular back then, where they showed like the misses and the bad shots and all that stuff. So all you seen was straight up deer getting schwacked and, running and tipping over 20 yards. And that was the hunt.
Well, I used to watch before I'd stay at Justin's house, my uncle's, and he would have Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild. He'd have the VCR
hell yeah.
stuff. And I'd put it in there, and Uncle Ted would kill like 20 animals in like 30 minutes. I'm like, man, this is awesome. Now he's hunting like a game ranch, like he's killing like zebras and crap. And so half of it's probably fake anyways. But I would watch that crap, and there wasn't the only time that you saw somebody mess up was your personal experience, or you heard it of somebody messing up, or a buddy that, so it's not like today where you can go on and learn from Don Higgins or Jeff Sturgis or Chris B or someone like that, about, like John Dudley said it at Total Archery Challenge. He said, there's some guys that have been shooting for 12 months that shoot better than it took me the first 15 years to shoot. And it's because of the internet. You can get on the internet and watch 10 videos and be better than 90% of people that shoot. Same thing with shot selection, same thing with arrows, same thing with bows. Like, it's all out there now. And I hate people that talk about the school of hard knocks, but that's kind of how you have to learn to some extent.
Right. And I guess, yes, there is an abundant more information than there was. And so, like, I don't want people to think that they shouldn't have an excuse to not make a good shot on a deer, because that's not at all what we're trying to say. Because I mean, we have a podcast and we've talked to a lot of very, 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 very good hunters. I mean, we've had Don Higgins on the podcast. We've had Joel Turner, who is a shot expert, and like John Eberhart. We've had all of them, absolute deer killers, and we still go out and make bad shots on deer, or we still blow encounters. So we're not at all saying that, like, okay, just because you can consume the content, that doesn't automatically translate into what happens in the woods.
No. I watch people play on Sunday all the time, and I'll never throw like that. So, but I mean, you get what I'm saying. I think most people will get that. But yeah, it was completely different. Like, how long to wait on a gut shot? Well, you got to shoot one in the guts and wait and kind of mess up and learn. That's how you used to have to figure it out. Now it's like, I don't know. It's a completely different time. But shot selection, I don't think is. I mean, it's probably changed over the years a little bit.
Maybe. I mean, I think the equipment has allowed people to be a little bit more marginal on their shots, just from the precision aspect of it. But to be able to be more precise, even with better equipment, that still takes a lot of practice and consistency, and you still got to put in the work in the off season to be able to make that precision just as accurate as if you were even shooting an older bow. So let's say it just kind of slightly quartered away. Where are you all putting it on the deer, Carol, since you haven't spoken in a good minute?
It also, I mean, it all depends.
In the butt cheek?
Yeah. It's
been there. Not mine, though.
Severe quartered away in the butt cheek. I'm going to aim a little farther back. I think my idea is, if it's quartered away a little bit, I'm going to go for more of a double lung than try to go for that hard shot. Honestly, I'm going to put it a little farther back, aim just a tad higher, and go for a double lung. That would be my, that's what goes through my head of, hey, the heart shot is, if they're quartered away, very marginal. Like, you mess up at all, if they're quartered away, you shoot a little low, you're screwed. You shoot a little more toward the brisket, you're screwed. But if you aim a little farther back, go for that double lung, you have a little more area. But it all, like I said, depends on the angles. But
I was just going to say, it doesn't even have to come down to angles, because me, even if they're completely broadside and at 30 yards, I'm like, I'm just going to give a little bit of air room, aim center mass.
But there is, it's interesting on the angle thing on even the quartering away, like you shoot a deer on the heart. Heart's a little more further forward than the lungs are, obviously. And I think about things I've had experiences now where you do see shots, especially hard quartering shots, that skip, like they hit a rib and skip. Like, I am very interested in the bite factor. Have you ever seen those tests where they kind of put a board at 45-degree angle and they shoot like expandables and fix at them, and some of them literally hit and just go and they skip? And I don't know, like, I think it's really important to put the arrow maybe even a touch further back than you would think, the harder they're quartering away, just because you have a skip factor there where they can hit the ribs and absolutely slide up the ribs.
Do you think that's just how it is, or do you think that's an like an arrow broadhead setup
I think there's a little bit of both of that. Like, I think that you just have that weirdness of shooting a stick at an animal, and that could happen with like I think it could happen with any broadhead.
Well,
I
I
think it
guess you
has
do
some.
kind of see it even with like high powered rifles and bullets and stuff. Like your entry could be, perfect, and then all of a sudden it ricochets off something where it goes like straight down, and that's where the exit hole is.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So I guess it really wouldn't. That's kind of just how the way it is then.
Well, a good example of it is the 6x7. That's like a 25-yard shot, quartering. I would say about as textbook quartering away as you can get, like 45 degrees, probably. Not like the hardest quartering you've ever seen, but 45 ish. And dude, I can just pull the video up.
So people can see your marginal shot,
I don't give a frick. It's already on the
or
internet.
at best shot.
Yeah. So you can see the quartering angle, like right there. What would you call that?
So from the camera, are you positioned to the left of the camera?
I'm pretty much dead even with him. Like, imagine I'm sitting like weird. I'm looking at the center of his guts. This would be where I'm sitting, like this type of line.
Right, but
Yeah.
so the camera angle's right here, and then you're on the left hand side.
Exactly. The camera's to the right of me, and I'm
Okay.
to the left. Yeah. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
what would you call that? 30 degrees, maybe? That's not the steepest quarter angle you've ever seen. You can see everything still.
I would say that's just like your typical quartered away shot.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just call it 30 or something to that extent. Like just a regular quartering away shot.
Because that's not super hard, and that's not like just slightly quartered away.
No. So you see the shot.
Mhm.
Okay. That I think one of the issues with this shot was the aiming point was a little too far forward. I would have
Mhm.
moved it back a little bit. I think it's just a mistake on my part. But it hits him if he's broadside, perfect.
Right.
But you can see as he runs off, basically what happens there is it hits and it rides up under the shoulder, rides up the rib. It didn't bite. It didn't hit and bite into the ribs. Like that's what you want for it to bite and go in. It didn't do that. So I just find that interesting on a shot like that. That's not super quartering away, not like the harshest angle, that it did that, because everyone else was like, hey, you definitely got into the cavity. You just didn't get a ton of penetration. And it just was weird to me. So I think you bring that into the shot when you're talking about quartering away, but I don't know that happens all the time.
I like to play it safe rather than not, just because, I mean, yeah, the deer could duck and all that stuff, but again, depending on how far away he is, I mean, I kind of agree with Carol, like, especially if it's a quartered away. And I mean, even if he's not even really quartered away that hard, I tend to lean on the side of caution where I'm like, okay, like, am I going to heart punch him? No, like, in all honesty, I'm probably not even giving myself a chance to heart punch him. But what I know for sure I'm going to do is, if the arrow goes where I want it to, it's going to be a double lung every time.
I agree with that, which is going to require you to aim probably more like mid body, and
yeah, that's how I look at it. Of like, if I'm and if, for example, the video we watched, if you're a little far left, I hit him in the guts, he's gonna die. Where and when, but he's a dead deer. You hit him a little far forward, it's all right. You probably still nick the lungs. If you're a little low and a little far forward, heck, you might even hit the heart. But going for a heart shot on a quarter away, you have it's marginal. It's tough. It's
and
the way I look at it.
Aiming with your exit in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Important.
Exactly. If I don't hit the heart, what else could I hit here? Probably nothing. I mean,
they call that going for broke.
Yeah. If I don't hit the heart here, quartering away, maybe you get some veins, arteries. I don't know, but other than that, it's like, well, you're not going to hit the lungs. So
when I was on that recurve hunt and it's last day, it's like 11:45, and you have to be gone by noon, and that buck standing at 30 yards with a recurve. I'm like, this is a go for broke. This is I hit him in the heart and he goes 10 yards, or I shoot him and I never see him again. And with a compound, that was a go for broke moment, but not with a recurve. That guy got to walk.
Quartered two. I think with that, let's start with completely facing to you. Right? I don't know what they call that. Just
frontal.
Yeah, that's right. Just a frontal shot. Do you guys? Okay, I'm not going to say do you guys, because I already know you all haven't ever taken that shot. Would you take a complete frontal shot on a whitetail from a tree stand?
Probably not.
Probably.
I probably wouldn't.
Why is that?
Could add an angle.
Because
That's
Mr. Perfect.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Mr. Perfect. I don't completely frontal. I mean, no, because
Like
here's the reason.
facing you is like looking up at the tree at like 20, 25 yards, where it's one of those where you're already drawn back. You've been waiting on him to make a move, either turn broadside one side or the other, but he picks you off. I don't know what gave him away. Probably the whole tree shaking from under you.
Yeah, the acorns falling off my tree.
Exactly. You're already in your pen. He's looking dead at you, and he's probably about to bolt. What are you
I'm
going
gonna
to
shoot
do?
him right between the eyes.
Yeah. Well,
No,
Serpent
With your
said
arrow?
can't do that. So
I don't know. I probably wouldn't, and that's just because of the encounter I had this year of I'm gonna take that chance of, well, maybe he takes one more step. I don't know. But I learned a lot this year, especially from the deer that I shot. Would I take that shot again? We talked about this earlier, Christian. I take that shot 10 times out of 10. I had a little marginal error. I could have had a better shot. I was 3-4 inches left. I could have done better on my part. If I wasn't as far left, we 100% find that deer. I think we do. I think we 100% find it. But completely frontal, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one because in my head, with that scenario you gave me, I don't know, but in my head, if he's completely frontal, he's going to keep walking to you, or he's going to turn left or right, or turn and run away. I don't know, but he's going to give you a different shot at some point, whether he walk underneath you. But
no, I already laid out the scenario. He's done picked you off, and
how
you
big
gotta
is he? Give me the full.
He's Mr. this year. He's not Mr. next year. He's Mr. this year. So if that tells you anything,
I don't know. I have no idea from experience of how much penetration I got from shooting coast to coast this year. Maybe, but maybe I got lucky with that, or maybe I got unlucky with it. I don't know. I don't have a direct yes or no. That's a tough one.
Christy.
I mean, probably not past 20 yards. No, I kind of want to take a frontal just to see, not on a buck. And I hate to say that because the doe isn't any less valuable than a buck. With the arrow setup that I'm shooting and the broadheads I'm shooting, a frontal is a very ethical shot, I think. And I do think I could go coast to coast on a deer with it, depending on how big they are. But anything past 20 yards on a frontal, probably not, because then you got the factor of not only the ducking, but the turning. And I don't want to hit one in the neck or something like that. But
even hit it in the face just from it turning, and
you definitely could
give it in a piercing. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I think that the frontal would be an extremely close shot, but I have no personal experience to kind of go on there. This year, my goal was to get some shoulder shots, and I did that, and I was very impressed with that. But I don't have any frontal experience, so I'm not going to say. What do you think? I've been using the new Exodus Rival cell camera for the last couple months, and I have found a beautiful mainframe 8-point with tons of stickers to go after this fall.
Ooh.
One thing I do appreciate about Exodus trail cameras is all of the cameras share the same data plan, so you only pay for what you need. A lot of cell cam companies charge you for HD pictures. I've seen prices of $5 for 50 HD pics. Exodus is going to give you unlimited HD pictures right to your phone, which is awesome when you're sitting there in the middle of the summer and it's 100 degrees and you just want to binge a bunch of trail cam photos.
If you're looking for a solid cell camera with great performance and a 5-year no BS warranty, go check them out. So as we all know, hunting gear is something people can make way too complicated. Arrows can be the exact same way. Instead of going down all those rabbit holes trying to sift through the endless information that's online and you're not really sure if it's right or wrong, Exodus makes it simple to get the right arrow for your exact setup.
So go online to the Exodus Arrow Builder. It takes less than a minute. You're going to enter your draw weight, your draw length, and how heavy of a point you're shooting. And it's going to be that simple. Let the guys at Exodus take care of the rest.
So if you're interested in Exodus Rival cell cameras or a new set of their MMT arrows, just go to ExodusOutdoorGear.com and use code HA15 for 15% off anything on their website.
Once again, that is ExodusOutdoorGear.com. Use code HA15 at checkout for 15% off. Now let's get back to the podcast.
I mean, I think I'd rather take a frontal shot from the ground just because I feel like, I don't know why. I just feel like there's more
Well, that angle,
There's
you
a-
have a better chance. I mean,
yeah,
the
to like
angle
not
you have
maybe
more-
hit the head or neck or whatever. I think so, but I don't know because my thing. Let's say I think the average person is anywhere from 12 to 15 feet up in the tree, and let's
Yeah.
say at 20 yards, and then you're trying to take an exact frontal. If we're going to the old adage of aim for where you expect the exit, aim where you want your exit hole to be. I feel like that's going to be a little bit higher up on the neck,
Yeah.
especially if he's just like, like this. And so you do have that. I think there's a pretty good, strong likelihood of you having that turning and maybe hitting in the neck where you're not wanting it to go or anything like that. Are you going to hit something good? Probably, probably. But I just think you're going to have to aim, especially from a tree higher up than what would probably feel comfortable at the time. And now, quarter two, fire all day long, like punch it right there where I think the neck and the shoulder would meet if it's the quarter two, just a little bit. But as a straight frontal, because I know myself, I would take it probably, but if it didn't work out or something went wrong, I would feel like I would want to sell my bow that day.
Everything will be up for sale that night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
give it the
yeah.
whole man. If I would have just waited 10 more seconds to see.
Well, it's not only that, it's just like you see those videos sometimes on Facebook with of deer. Obviously they're suburban like housing edition type deer that have like arrows running through the nose and like all that stuff. It's like, man, I don't want to make one of those because that would just be awful trying to be a deer and, live with that until it falls out.
Well, one thing you realize too when you shot it enough of them is the arrow never comes back. Once it's gone, it never comes
Yeah.
back. What's done is done. Watching one run off that's not going to die is probably about as agonizing as anything when it comes to hunting. And I think one of the most important time or things about shot selection is knowing when just not to take a shot. Like when to be like, no, it's not good enough. Like I'm not accepting that shot. No, I'm not going to do that.
But
But-
your emotions get you so bad, whether it be day 5 of a week-long rutcation where you're just like, this is my chance now or never. I mean, heck, I've shot a buck this year and like I'm happy with them, but still yet, like now it's December 11th. It's been a month to the date. Like, yeah, one month ago today, that's when I shot my buck. And I've put quite a bit of time in the woods between now and then. And like, I'm at the point now where if I see a 130, I'm going to be like, it's now or never, baby. Cause like, I don't have one on camera or I have one on camera out of probably 200 acres I can hunt. Now, granted, it hunts very small, but I only have one good deer that would probably go over 130. And if he came strolling through, I would, just knowing myself, I feel like I would have that now or never mentality. But since I already missed a really big one this year, I feel like I've learned enough where I'm like, okay, it's either going to be done right or not at all. So
I think-
emotions do play a part in that. And like, it's easier said than done 100%.
Oh, absolutely. It's easier when you've shot a couple that year, or you've had a fantastic year, or say you've had 3 or 4 years in a row that are good, where you don't feel any sort of desperation. When I mean, it's easier said than done, but there are certain situations. There's a difference between looking for a Hail Mary and saying I can make that shot. Those are two different things. Like
That's true.
a Hail Murray, a Hail Mary.
Kyle Murray.
Yeah. Those are two different things though.
Yeah.
Like a 75-yard quarter and 2 shot on a 160-inch deer is not a great shot, but a 40-yard with a basketball size place you can hit, that's a little bit different. Those are two very different things in my opinion. And you
So-
only learn when to do that and when not to by doing it and doing it wrong sometimes. So we were talking about the quartering 2 or the frontal shot. I want you guys to check this out. I'm sure you guys have seen this video. This is a buck. I think it's Illinois. It's Whitetail Edge. I know. Have you guys seen this clip?
It ain't Oklahoma.
No, I can tell you it's Oklahoma. It's not Oklahoma. So look at this shot. Look at this scenario, right? You got a deer probably sub 15 yards, completely frontal. Is this a shot?
Christ.
Is this a shot you're taking? Like, just wait.
I can already tell you, yeah.
Yeah, but you see that, and you talk about the angle and the
Uh,
stuff. Look at the angle. Look at where your exit would be. That's not an easy shot.
No, and that's what I mean. Like you'd have to aim higher than probably where you thought. And heck,
Yeah.
that I mean, granted, that deer's pretty damn close. Like probably looking 10 yards, maybe.
It's close. Yeah.
It-
So watch this. Like this is how lethal it can be. I think he shot a little more middle than you might want. Like maybe pick a side, but watch this deer. It runs 30 and is done.
Mhm.
I think he hit that deer in the neck, though. I don't think
Rewind
that.
that.
Was like
Rewind that.
okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'd aimed a little more left. Now maybe he was, but I would have put
maybe
it
he
a
was.
little more left and said, "All right, guys."
I mean, he's got a 180 mid 180s on his wall, and I don't. So you keep aiming how you do. But
not
that's
critiquing anything, but what I would have
Yeah.
done. Not
Yeah.
critiquing him. Good for him, but
but that's a good example. Like we we're talking about, when they're that close, there's a lot of stuff you can hit that's pretty good.
Mhm.
A lot of stuff. But that shot at 30 is a completely different shot. Completely different.
Which I think that would go to that equation of the further back it is, the more broadside it has to be.
100%.
I think
Yeah.
that's like the end all be all on like how to fix it.
Yeah. Well, another aspect of it too is being realistic about your abilities. Like, if you can't hit the broadside of a barn, don't shoot past 25 yards. Like I have a box to stand on, as I have a deer in the garage that I shot at 76 yards. And I probably never
Well,
practiced
that's the
past
reason
40.
we found it 3 years later, though.
Exactly. Let that
Yeah.
be a lesson to you. Understanding your ability. I think that's a big part of the equation, is understanding your abilities, your experience level, and then knowing when it's more important not to take a shot, because I can guarantee you it sucks when one gets away. It really does. But it really sucks when you shoot one, hit it, and do not find it, or shoot one and miss it. I would almost rather not shoot than hit one and not find it. Like that.
Yeah. But knowing beforehand, or hindsight's just the key to this, though, is like if you were to not shoot, and let's say you didn't fill that tag, or you didn't have another encounter with them the rest of the year, because I've been through this too, where it's like, okay, I don't feel comfortable with the shot. And then fast forward, it's like, man, I should have just threw up something. You know that basketball saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's kind of what I think about when it comes to like hunting in general. Is just, okay, was that the perfect shot? No, but this is probably a bad way to use scripture, but
Oh God. Go
you
ahead.
know, it's you can't wait for the perfect day to like plant your seed. You know what I mean? Or else the planting will never get done. I don't know what scripture that is.
But before you take that shot, is this shot in my abilities or not? People know. Like
Probably.
everybody knows. Is this a not
That's
a
true.
chance
That's
in
true.
hell before that I'm going to make this, and I hope I hit him in the jug?
Perfect example. Perfect example would be this year when we were down there, and it was the deer I had, the big one I had the encounter with. Okay,
Mhm.
it was at 50 yards. I had he was on a doe, and the doe was at 45, completely broadside, and then he was at 50. And then there was a big old tree back behind him, a little bit to the right of him, that was 55. He was about smack dab in the middle of the doe and that big tree. So I knew he was about 50, somewhere around there, really close. Things were moving fast. He was on my weak side in the saddle. And in the back of my mind, I was like, this is going to be a hard shot. But then I had that other little devil on my shoulder saying, hey, back at home, you stick your corn feeders at 40 yards, just because the deer are pretty skittish, especially the does. And I'm like, okay, what's another 10 yards? But you add all these circumstances of, I think the biggest one would be emotion, where it's like, okay, this is day 5 of a 7-day trip. This is the first buck I've laid eyes on, and it's a freaking giant. It's my now or never moment. Also, it's on a complete wrong side of my saddle. So, and I don't have the headspace to be like, okay, let's position how you need to be positioned to shoot right in this saddle to help with my shot selection. And then also read the room where, okay, this deer is on a doe. The doe is not scared whatsoever. The buck, I think, has picked me off. And so you try to blend all these things together and then pull out a 50-yard shot. And it's like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I hope this works out. It wasn't like this deer's dead, because the next day when I shot that buck, as soon as I seen that deer and seen him walking in, as soon as I got the full draw, I was like, this deer's freaking toast. And then going back the day before, it's like, I hope I hit him.
Yeah. Well, how often do you shoot 50?
I mean,
I can tell you, I don't.
Hunting wise,
No, just practice 50.
I mean, not a lot, to be honest.
Me either. I shoot 25 yards 95% of the time. So to expect me to pull out a 50 out of my cheeks is basically like, because I'll go out there at 60 in the summer and I'll shoot. And I'm like, dude, I can't hit a plate. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, because I never shoot 60. That's why. Because I see the pin and I'm like, looks good. And then I pull and it's like phew, to the left. I'm like, damn. So, I mean, I think there's I'm the same way. Like, if a 50 would be out of my normal realm of possibility. That's kind of what I mean, though, is like, I would know if one was standing at 50. I'm like, that's not. Like, I'll try. I might try.
Well,
but
you tried 24 yards past that before. So now, granted, it was a different time. That was 3 years ago. So I would hope we've all matured, but apparently I didn't. So
50 is not an unethical shot. I don't think 50
I mean,
is like
I don't think so. I would call, I don't know. I would do myself a Carroll and say I'd do that crap again. I don't know. I would do it differently. I would still take the shot, but how I took the shot would be different.
Right. And I think me, like when I went mule deer hunting in Nebraska, I knew, I'm like, okay, if one's at 60, it's kind of like I was shooting 60 quite a bit, but I'm like, it's still a prayer. Like for me and my abilities, that's kind of a prayer. But I would know that before taking my like I knew that before. I'm like, it's a prayer. 40 and in, I'm like, woo, like I'm pretty confident in that. So I don't know what the point of that all is, but I think people know their abilities. I know, but that doesn't mean sometimes you can't stretch your abilities either. Like there's certain scenarios where, you got to send it. Or what is the phrase is,
we're contradicting ourselves
aim
so
high
much
and let it
in this
fly.
podcast.
Aim high and let it fly.
Yeah. Basically, if y'all haven't caught on yet, depending on the situation, do what you feel.
We're probably going to shoot at the end of all of this, if it's a deer and it's got a rack and we're like, oh, it's probably going to let an arrow fly.
Why do you guys have more failed hunts than successful? Well, this is why. This podcast is exactly why.
Yeah. Everybody wants them at 25 and broad, but that doesn't happen all the time.
No, it doesn't. Positioning's one thing. What about kind of reading the room? Like different times of year, obviously deer are going to be a little bit more on their toes than some times of the year. Maybe if it's the rut, they're probably might be coming in hot. Maybe your window is pretty quick where, you and Justin had that scenario down on some public where you've seen five bucks on one doe and you couldn't get any of them to stop. And then it could be a different time of year. Maybe it's October where one's just kind of milling around eating acorns, or it could be after rifle season in December where if they even hear a twig snap, they're 2 counties over.
Probably reading the room is the thing that I think takes the longest to learn out of all of these things. Besides not angles, not when to shoot, when not to shoot. It's when to draw, when to do when to grab for your bow. What is this the last chance that I'm going to have to shoot at this deer? Is he fixing a bolt? Like understanding those sort of things. I think those kind of reading the room things are so hard to articulate because each situation is so different. And you have to like, from the second you see that deer, like you're downloading data, like, is he nervous? Is he running? Is there something else going on? Is there 2 does behind me? Is he coming down from the right wind? Well, I better shoot him now. He's about to walk downwind of me. There's so many different scenarios that can happen in that, which is everything. But reading the room I think that is one of those, when in football, you hear people talk about intangibles, like this guy's he's just got something, but it's not his speed or his ability to throw the ball far. Like he's got intangibles. Like
you're like 3 syllables past my vocabulary.
You know what I'm talking about, Carroll.
I know what you mean.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking. You guys both know what I'm talking about. Reading the room I don't think that's something you can teach. That's what I'm trying to say. It's something you have to just experience. I can sit here and tell you, hey, if a doe comes in and throws her head up and is mad dog and you don't move. But you're gonna learn that by going out and moving a shoulder and be like, oh, she won't even look in my direction. Like you're gonna learn that way.
Swear to God, I didn't even blink and she was gone.
I didn't move.
A good example is Carol and the beans. That's a great example.
I'm still confused over that. I'm like, dude, no way that they saw me. I didn't move. I wasn't downwind. I don't know.
Carol, tell that story, and I have it. I'm gonna upload that to OneDrive, and I'm gonna show people the reenactment.
Well, we were in Kansas, and I remember our buddy was like, "Hey, I have a decent deer. No one's gonna shoot him. He's mature. He's probably mid 120s." And I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go."
You know what's funny is all of us at the time were like, "I'm good. I don't want that one. I would gladly take that deer today." Absolutely.
Yeah. And he was like, I was like, "Oh, I'll go give him a shot." So we get there, and I'm like, "Hey, your stand is around the corner, and it's 70 yards away from."
You're exaggerating. It was like 60.
Okay, it was the point is it's not a 60-yard shot. It's unseeable. It was like in a different corner. You cannot shoot. Like you cannot shoot. So I'm there. I'm like, I'm here. My best bet is I'm going to sit in the beans. The beans are like waist high. I'm literally going to sit down in them. I was like, I will peek my head up during prime time, take a look around. It's going to have to work. People sit on the ground, right? So it's going to have to work.
The beans were 20 inches tall. So
no, I was sitting down. Me sitting down.
I have the video. Don't argue with me.
That wasn't the same time. Those beans weren't full grown.
Continue.
So that was a year later. So I'm like, okay.
That was like a week later.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Was it? I thought it was
Dude, it was like a week later. They were putting corn out again, and they were like, let's make this video.
Oh, well,
Okay,
anyways, I was like probably like 25, 30 yards away. And I can't see anything. I'm on the ground, and some doe come in. Well, I had a bobcat and another animal, I don't remember what it was, come in, and they looked around at the corn. I'm like, hey, this is going to work, because they didn't pick me off. No other animal picked me off. So it come in, and these doe come in, and I mean, they like don't even enter the field and looking right at me. I'm like, at this point, like they're still like 40 yards away, and they're looking right at me. I'm like, okay, I don't know if they see me or not, but I'm actually like in my head, I'm well hidden, because I'm like down, not laying down, but like on my
Tell me
knees.
if you see me, Carol. Hold on.
I'm like hunched down in the beans. I'm like, okay, they can't see me now. The biggest problem that I'm going to have is going to get drawn back. But at this point, I'm like, this is just a test trial of if these doe pick me off, a buck's going to pick me off. So these doe just look right at me. I'm like, they're not going to win me. I don't know if they knew exactly where I was at, but they knew something was up. But yeah, they just blew and took off. And I'm like, well, maybe it had to be me. I'm not even 100% certain it was me, but
Carol, are you serious?
it had to be me.
To this day, you're saying there's a chance that it wasn't you. Okay, I gotta share the video. People will understand what I mean.
Yeah.
All right, for y'all that don't watch the video version, you have to, because tell me if this is the exact corn pile where these deer were coming into. Get ready.
Okay, first of all, there's no, that's not, that is not a week later. That is not.
No, imagine Carol. I don't know how they saw me.
That, first of all, the beans, the beans were fully grown. They weren't dying. This was September when we were hunting. That is not what the beans looked like, but I will admit that video is hilarious, but that is not what the beans looked like at all.
Well, it's funny because Mike goes,
look, I'm not going to downplay it. I will bet my life on the line that if a person or a human was out there and was like, hey, here's a corn pile, they would never know I was there.
Instead of sitting,
yeah, a human. Dude, you guys would have never known. I'm telling you, I felt when I got there, if I would have done it if I wasn't confident. First of all, I'd have walked back to the truck and went home and slept. Trust me, you guys know that for a fact. But I was fairly well hidden, as in I had to move beans over, kind of peek, do a little head up. Like there is no way. There's no way, unless they like were watching me the entire time.
So were you laying on your belly?
No, I was on my knees. Like these beans were like fully grown, as in like waist high. as in I had to go in there and stomp on some beans to where I could sit down. That video is not a week later, you little liars.
I don't know if it was or
Yeah.
not, but it's pretty funny.
But yeah, that video is awesome. But I was confused. I'm still confused to this day. They had to watch me. They had to watch me get there and get set down. Like, they had to be watching me.
It's pretty awesome though, because you're like, instead of a deer walking maybe in between the corn and me at the tree stand, you're like, no, I'm getting up in there chili. I'm killing one off this corn pile.
Well, it wasn't super close. Like I said, I was still probably every bit of 30 yards away to where.
Was there a tree stand not already hung, or was it just like the only available tree you put your saddle in?
So you had my saddle at that point. That was when I got.
I had your platform, didn't have your saddle.
No. You had my platform. That's right. You had my platform because you were too cheap to buy yourself one. But
no, I bought Chrissy, and then Chrissy ordered his too late.
Fair.
But that was when you had my platform, and when I say there was one tree and it was 5 yards away from the pile, that was the only tree. The stand, like I said, it was like 60, 70 yards away. It was a far shot, but there was trees between that you could see. This is Kansas, so it's not just a tree or two. Like, it was thick, as in you couldn't even see the corn. Because I got there and was confused, and like, yeah, there's a tree stand. I was like, what do you want me to do? Aim straight up in the sky and like hopefully it comes down on them? I don't know really what to do here.
Airbend around the cedar to kill the deer. You just shoot and move your bow as you shoot.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in that hunt. Not because of the corn, but I'm still like, if I do that 9 times out of 10, I get away with it. I'll shoot those doe next time.
I just remember them telling Mike, and then Mike was like, "Well, I was wondering why that buck didn't come in last night, because they watched him on the cell cam." And he's like, "Yeah, last night was the only night that he didn't come in."
We're like, really? That's crazy.
Well, I moved to the stand though, because after those doe, that was like early in the hunt. Those doe came in like fairly early. So like I said, they very well could have watched me go out there and sit down. And I had Bobcat, and then I don't remember what else came in, and they were hovering around the corn as well. And I was like, well, this is going to work because this is the first 10 minutes of the hunt. And they didn't see me, so I'm going to try it. And those doe saw me. I'm like, I'm going to move to the tree stand, and the tree stand there was really no shot.
Did you see any more deer?
On another field, not where we could hunt, but across the field. I mean, the neighbors had a wide open field, so I saw deer, a mile away, but nothing remotely close.
God, that's awesome.
Well, in the grand scheme of shot selection, I guess your story is acceptable, but
yeah, it fits.
Hey, I made it work. Well, I didn't make it work, but I did with what I could.
Well, I'm sure. Well, hopefully, at least you'll be able to maybe have another shot selection on a deer before this season wraps up and comes to a close. Are you planning on getting out there any? Or are you just going to stick with waterfowl for the remainder of the year?
I'll probably go. Christy and I might go this upcoming weekend. It really depends. I got some work stuff. I got to go on a trip with work, and then when I get back, it just depends where I'm at with that. Possibly this weekend, but after Christmas would be my best shot. Christmas is around the corner. Got family coming in. Work, all that. I really don't have any more PTO days either, so it just depends on my availability and all that.
Yeah, you'd rather go to the beach than hunt with your buddies. I get it.
Yeah, this year I chose my PTO wisely, it looks like.
Yeah, Carroll told me like before Thanksgiving, I said, let's go hunting. He said, man, it's just not my year. This is like before Thanksgiving. He said, it's just not my year.
It started off, dude, before it wasn't even my year. Before a week before season, I got all my stuff stolen. So I'm like, well, it's going to be like that. Then I shoot the biggest buck of my life. Couldn't find it. And I've seen more deer this year. I've passed up on many deer, but
have you passed? So you've passed things this year that you are bigger than anything you've ever shot.
10 of them. Yeah.
And you called that a bad year?
10 of them.
So Carroll went hunting one time, and he said, "Yep, saw Mr. Next Year, which is like 150-inch deer."
Right.
And he goes, "It was a terrible hunt." And I said, "I thought you saw Mr. Next Year." He goes, "Yeah, but I can't shoot him. It was a terrible hunt." And I was like, "You saw 150-inch deer? What are you
Carroll,
talking about?"
I have hunted quite a bit this year, and I've seen a total of probably 5 bucks this whole
Carol
year.
saw that one morning in October.
Yeah, I did. I did. Every single one of them were young, and I'm like, well, it's tough. It's super, super tough to pass on good deer. Like it's super tough.
Oh, I don't know your feeling, but I could imagine. But it's also super tough going out there and being like, I didn't see crap this, today. Probably won't see crap tomorrow.
I had that the majority. Don't
No,
twist
I
my
know,
words here.
but
Don't
I
twist
just,
my words.
I
I'm not
just
going
don't
out
want
there
you to
seeing deer
say.
every hunt.
I just don't want you to say, it isn't your season because it sounds like there's deer to be shot there.
Something new's got to come through, but yeah, something.
Carol
something
passed on the
new.
refrigerator.
Yeah, I don't know why you did that.
That was a mistake. Carol shoots paddles, and then like he's like, man, I'm not even gonna shoot another deer this year. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I said, I think you should definitely go shoot another one. He goes, okay. He goes out the next week, and then the refrigerator comes in. He's like, nah, I ain't gonna shoot him. Like, what?
Emotions, man. They'll get you.
Wasn't he the most beautiful deer you've ever seen, Carol? He looks like a chocolate milk bar, like a milk
As
chocolate.
far as coat wise, he was awesome. I'm glad I got to experience it too. I don't remember if he ever gave me just the biggest problem is the one time I did see him. I think I've seen him twice, but dude, where we hunt, you don't get one deer. You got 15 deer around you. And you're like, well,
God, it's so hard.
I'm not standing up. I'm not standing up and I don't have my bow in my hand, so I'm too late. Now, given 13 out of those 15 deer or doe that are switching off, looking at you, wondering what's going on.
I'm going to take care of that problem. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's going to be the plan. If we do go back out, which we will, or I will, that'll be my main focus is to shoot a few doe. If a buck comes by, great, but my main goal is to kill a few doe.
We still have deer showing up, but like nothing. We have like the 11 showing up, and then like a bunch of 2-year-olds and a couple 3-year-olds. Like just nothing that's like old and nothing really of age. I don't think. Like and also Carol made a good point before we got on the podcast. Like half the deer we have are like broke, like racks or like.
I would say 80% of them. 80% of the deer you can't even identify him anymore. You're like, I think it's this one, but he's missing 1.5 sides.
That's crazy.
Yeah, there's one that's probably 150 incher. He's missing like G2 on this side, G3 on this side, eye guard on this side. It's like you took every other point and just broke it off,
dude. And he's still 135 inch deer,
and he's still big. Yeah. He just broke every side. Every other horn's broke. It's pretty interesting.
I would say I'd count his horns. Be like, well, technically he's only a 6-pointer, so and he's mature. Guess I got to shoot him.
Shooter.
He's not though. That's the thing, dude. He's not. He's like 4. I mean, he's 4.5, but he's not. Next year, that deer will be. If he comes back around, he's one of those deer that he doesn't make an appearance often. But
what would be kind of cool is, let's say one of them got their butt beat and maybe already broke off, like maybe damaged the pedicle. I've heard those bucks that damage the pedicle, they won't really retain the same shape, at least for the next year until it heals up, because they could throw just an abnormal like gunk on this side, and so that'd be something to watch out for, especially if like you see any that either dropped early or if y'all find any sheds of them that dropped hard. Y'all ever seen that?
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, they grow like a baseball bat the next like season on that one side, like funky. One thing that is worrying me is Mr. Next Year. One of our, I know I've literally got some messages on Instagram of people like, show me Mr. Next Year. I've heard you talk about him, but he has, the last time we saw him was like 3 days before rifle season was up, so probably over 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago,
and he hasn't been back on camera.
Haven't seen him since.
No, but he had a little 2-3 week span where he wasn't, and we got one photo of him just running by.
Yeah,
so. I wouldn't be too disheartened, but I can tell you, I hardly ever get any like new bucks showing up on my property, and I've had like a couple show up that either hasn't been there for a while or just complete ones that I've never even seen. And now granted, they're all like 100, 110 inches, but still. So I'm sure they're still moving pretty good.
I hope he's not doing that on someone else's camera right now, and they're like, dude, let's get out there. We're going to kill this thing.
Yeah. Reignite a little bit of motivation for.
I mean, I would feel bad, but I'd feel really bad because Carol's got several videos of him. I woke up one morning. This is hilarious. I woke up one morning in mid-October, to a text. The first text I see is, "I gotta know right now," and I'm like, "What?" And I open it up, and it's a video of Carroll filming Mr. Next Year at like 15 yards at our big buck ground camera.
Broadside, dude.
Broadside.
I'm talking 15 yards broadside, and I'm just like, that'd be crazy if this bow found a way in my hand.
I get a video of him, and the next text is, "I've got to know now." And I'm like asleep.
Carroll, that's when you text back and say, "Never mind, shoot the deer." And then when he wakes up, he'll have like his half of the lease in his Venmo account right there.
I think Carroll did tell me I shot him. He's like, "Don't be mad, dude. I shot him." He's like, "No, I'm just kidding. I didn't shoot him." Which, that was funny. I know season's not over. I want to find that deer shed so bad. Like, I want to put my hands on him bad. Carroll's put his eyes on him. I haven't even seen him in person yet, but he's like your arch nemesis, Carroll. He's been in there all up in your chili. When
Yeah, he knows. He said, "I heard that shot the other day. I'm good." So Christian's been in here. He shot. Freaking Carroll shot. I'm good. I'll do whatever I want now.
I'm still waiting for him to
Did
come
he
by
know
the cameras.
that? Like, did he know you couldn't shoot him, or did he think that, oh, that man ain't hitting me?
Dude,
Carroll got a full draw on him.
Oh, that is
Didn't you
true.
Yeah, didn't you
I
draw
didn't take the
back on him?
Yeah, it wasn't a good shot selection, believe it or not. That's the one that I didn't take.
Do you so looking back, since we're on the topic of shot selection,
No,
do
I
you
wouldn't.
regret it?
No, not one bit. He was walking away at
Really?
like 45 yards, and I'm like, no.
Carroll told an example of it. Jake, is there an example that comes to mind of like a good deer that you're in full draw on or looking down the scope on that you're like, I can't take this shot because it's just too ludicrous? Like one horror story of making the right decision on a buck.
I can tell you a whole lot of bad ones.
I've got a lot of bad. Yeah, everybody's got one of those.
Oh my God. Because as you were talking, like my mind immediately went to a bad one. Because I thought that's where you're going to go with it. Where I elected not to shoot, dude. Do you know of one? Because I'm drawing a blank. Like from one of my stories that I've told.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Not one that like comes to the top of my head.
Because usually, I mean, there's probably a reason. Because if I see a big one, I'm Kobe-ing that mother effer. You know what I mean?
Aim high, let it fly. Some would say.
Absolutely, spray and pray, baby. Man, I'll tell you a fail though.
Okay.
In 2017, after I shot that funky buck, I wasn't even. So this was the time where 918 media was a thing. And so I wasn't out there to really kill a deer, like not even a doe. I was literally out there to basically just get like B-roll, and I was going to reenact what happened. Because
back in the days where you got to go back to the stand to get footage.
Exactly. So that's what I was doing basically on that hunt. And it was a week later. It was like November 27th. What, expecting to see anything? I thought I killed the biggest deer in the freaking county before that. Well, I'm sitting there on my phone. It only took 5 minutes to obviously like get the B-roll and stuff that I thought I needed for that epic video. And
all 63 viewers love that thing. That thing was
I'm telling you. So I'm sitting in the climbing stand I had back there, and I'm on my phone. I have my bow hanging up. I'm used to doe walking into this corn pile. I look to my right, and it's getting like it's not dark, but at the time I didn't have glasses, so I thought it was a doe. And I watch it come in, and it's probably, I don't know, 40 yards away, walking through some timber, and I'm like, oh, it's just a doe. Like I might shoot it, I don't know, but I know where it's going. It's going to the corn pile. And then once it gets to the corn pile, like I was just like super, like it was November 27th. I wasn't expecting much. Like I was content with my year, all this stuff. So like I was just chilling, just enjoying being out there. Immediately went back on my phone, just playing on my phone. All of a sudden, out of the peripheral, I see it get closer and closer, and I'm still on my phone. It gets to maybe 25 yards. And I turn and look at it, and like I don't try to be slow or anything because I think it's just a doe. And I'm like, whatever. I turn and look, and it's a good racked buck. And I'm thinking, oh damn. Because as soon as I turn and look, he sees me turn and look. He looks directly up at me, like 20 yards. and I'm just sitting there froze, and I'm like, that's a shooter. So I like put my phone down, and he miraculously just puts his head back down, walks 10 yards in front of me. And I'm thinking this whole time, like, if I would have been up and ready, as soon as I seen that deer get my bow, I would have a 10-yard broadside shot right now. He comes 10 yards, and then he gets directly in front of me, butt facing directly away, walks that corn pile, and then stays there till basically dark. And so I stand up, grab my bow, and I'm just sitting there holding it, not drawn back yet, waiting for him to like make a decision whether he wants to turn right or left or just circle around the do something. But he's just sitting there munching on the corn, butt face directly to me. But it's starting to get super dark. Like it at the time he came in, like it was still daylight. But after about 10 minutes, it was getting pretty darn dim. And I was sitting there like looking through my peep, and I'm like, okay. Or like just looking at my pins. I'm like, okay, I can still see my pins. Like I'm good. Well, it got to the point where he kind of shifts just a little bit, and I have just a super, super hard quartered away shot, like pretty quartered away. And I draw back, and I'm just going to let you guys know this was in 2017. So this was 6 years ago. I get in full draw, and at this point, like the pins are pretty damn faint. And like I'm just being transparent. Was it smart to do? Absolutely not. But I put it pretty far back on him. I'm aiming for like guts, and hopefully it'll slide through, hit some good stuff. I shoot. I hear a big loud smack. He mule kicks, runs about 25 yards, and I can't see him, but I hear him. And and all the leaves are on the ground, and I hear kind of like he was like sort of sidestepping, like trying to catch his balance because he's about to go down. And all of a sudden I don't hear anything else. And I just hear just coughing, like 3 coughs. And I'm like, he's down. He fell. And so I get down, try to look for blood on impact. Long story short, we don't find that deer. But I'm just saying, we blood trailed him for a bit. Looking back, I'm not really sure where I even hit that deer. But there was good blood. That it wasn't just meat blood, like it was good blood. But that was probably a time I should have probably elected to pass. Now, granted, I was running trail cameras on that spot, never seen that deer in my life. So the chances of me seeing them again were probably low. Do I regret taking that shot looking back at it? No.
Why not?
Just because I know the property. I still hunt it to this day. And if a deer shows up like that, especially, and I assume the neighbor situation has only gotten worse since then. You're not going to see that deer again, whether the neighbor shoots it or not. It's just the way the property's set up.
There's a lot of situations like that where I wish that drones and dogs were a thing like they are today. Like I legitimately think that it's not every deer, but I think 50% of the ones that we haven't recovered in the last decade, I think you could have found. And honestly, a good example of that is the one you found this year from 3 years ago. I just think there's a heck of a lot of deer that you shoot, you make a decent shot on them, they expire, but for one reason or another, you don't find a good blood trail, or you just don't end up recovering them. Because now with drones and dogs and stuff, you just have so many more options. You have so many more avenues. I mean, obviously, Carroll didn't have a good experience with a dog, but you can't let that happen. Can't let that bring you down.
Yep.
This deer. Can y'all even see that at all?
Yeah, I got some glare on my screen.
Yeah, it's pretty dim, but this is the deer. I'm setting to the left. Yes, to the left of the camera. And so but just slightly. Let me tell you, this camera's rubbing my nipple. So basically where you see this camera is like my angle. And it's only going to play a slight clip of him throwing his head up, but that's the angle. Well,
That's a pretty tough angle.
Yeah, that's basically the angle.
That's about as quartering away as they get. Yeah.
That's literally looks about like the angle that I shot my deer.
I would say that would have been my max, but because I don't know how much more quartered away you could have got. But yeah, that's all situational. I don't know. Do you think we beat this enough?
I was thinking of one more situation. The 8 point that I shot in 2020 on public, that buck, I drew back on him one time at 50, and I don't know if this ever happened to you guys, but have you ever drawn back on a deer and literally like tried to put your pin on it and your pin's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I drew back on that deer at 50 because he was like quartering to me at 50, and I drew back. I was like, oh, I can definitely make that shot because he was a big bodied sucker. And my pin, if the mic is him, my pin is doing this. And I was like, not happening. And it wasn't even because like I'm like, oh, I'm wise. I'm not gonna take this shot. It's not ethical. I'm like, I might shoot 8 foot to the left of him. I might shoot 2 foot under him. I've had that happen many a times where I've drawn back on a deer and I'm like, can't. Like my pin's in. Or have you ever drawn back in the wind and your bow goes like to the left or
Yo, dude,
to the right?
You try to compensate and the wind stops and you're like, oh, you go right back. You're like, about right there. Close your eyes, pull that trigger and say, please God.
I think that explained like the whole total archery challenge of this last year. Especially when we did this might not even hit the target. I don't know.
Oh, the challenges and the countdowns were so bad.
Yeah. We need to figure out something new for this year.
Like ramping up, putting a bow on shot selection. Like if you had to, let's just say each person has 3. Like you have 3 rules, like golden rules for shot selection. Like talk to me like I'm 5 years old. What are the 3 things that you have to have for like perfect shot selection in your opinion? Like what are the 3 most important things?
Obviously a calm scenario where the deer doesn't know you're there. Obviously broadside and no obstruction between you and your arrow and the deer. I think you need those, but if I'm going to just make a conclusion real quick, what I would say is like, try to keep in mind all of these things, but also go with what your gut is feeling at the time, because it could be a 20-yard shot, 20-yard chip shot. But if you're mentally don't think you're able to get that deer down, then you might not need to punch that trigger, or vice versa. Like if that deer is at 50, 55 yards and you're like, man, it's really not, an ethical shot, what people would call an ethical shot, but I really think I could poke that sucker. If that's what your gut's telling you to do, then absolutely go for it. I think not a lot of people do that anymore, is like go off of your instincts and your gut feeling, and they try to go off of what, you said, or, Bob Lee Jones says over there, or what they see on TV. And it's like, I think people need to take that into account, not just from shot selection, but from, hunting a stand. Like, hey, I have a gut feeling about this spot, but I had on my map, I wanted to go here because that looks better from an aerial perspective. I don't know. I think keep all that in mind, but just rely on your gut and your gut feelings.
I would say 3 main points: patience, practice patience, and then know your limitations.
Those are good.
That'd be my 3.
If I had to, I'm thinking of like keeping a beginner in mind. I think I agree. Practice patience, all the things that you guys said. I think the only thing that I would add would be, especially in the beginning, if you're rushing it, it's probably not right. Like if you have to make a now or never, is getting wet, that kind of thing. There's certain situations where you do have to do that. They're like, one comes by rutting a doe and you're like, he's stopping right this second. I got to shoot right this second. There is certain situations like that. But typically, apart outside of the rut, if you're making your mind's running 1,000 miles an hour, that's typically not going to lead to a 12 ringer. So I would say just knowing when to.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but a beginner in mind, how are you going to make your mind not go 1,000 miles an hour unless you've been through the ringer 5 times? Because I think back to where I first started and I missed the first 4 deer I shot at. Even when I actually hit one, my mind was still going 50,000 miles an hour. And I don't think it stopped until, here recently.
Yeah. I don't really mean in the sense of you have to have a calm mind to shoot one. You're probably going to be dribbling down your leg a little bit when you're shooting one, probably the first 25 that you shoot with the bow. But I mean, in the sense of, if you have to make a decision when you're in draw of it's now or never. If I don't shoot in the next half second, this deer's getting away. That typically is what leads to a lot of wounded animals. And you can get into the shot anticipation side of it, the punch, just a lot of bad things can happen in those situations. And I would say, like, you want to have a good experience when you're first starting out. So, like, try to limit yourself to really good, really clean, really ethical shots. I would say that's good for everyone, but especially in the beginning. Like, I wouldn't be trying to Avatar Airbend or John Dudley shoot 178 yards away for your first type of shot. That's the main thing.
I agree. Carol, you got any closing thoughts?
I think the biggest thing that I did when I first started, and we had a few friends that do this too, is when you first start, you're probably not going to go out. Maybe you do. You're probably not going to go kill a 150-inch deer. Like, you need to practice with doe. You need to find a way to calm your nerves. Be around deer. Get comfortable being around them. Maybe your first hunt or two. Man, when I first started going, if I even saw a doe 200 yards away, I'm up there like, oh my gosh, and I'm shaking. About fall out of the tree shaking. Just now I'm, if I'm pulled back on a giant deer, yeah, I start getting, the butterflies in my stomach. But now I've hunted, I haven't hunted a long time, but I've been around enough deer that when I see a doe, I'm like, it's just a doe. I'll be all right. If I see a big buck, I'm like, stay calm. I'll be all right. It's just get around deer. Get comfortable about being around them.
You said something that stuck out is a lot of people will wait all year and not ever shoot any does. And there's certain situations where I think that makes perfect sense. But I think shooting does is like the best way to figure out shot selection, to figure out aiming, to figure out all that sort of stuff. Because you can shoot a lot more does than you can shoot
Dude,
bucks.
if you can hit a doe, you can hit a freaking buck, because they are the hardest animals to shoot. They will duck. They're smaller. Killing a doe is harder than killing a buck sometimes. I mean, I think so.
Seeing a buck is the hardest part, but like
Yeah.
shooting a buck is easier than shooting a doe.
Yeah.
I think they're so
Yeah.
much bigger bodied. They're literally twice the size. When
Yeah.
you see a 200+ pounder walk in, you're like, that's big.
Yeah, I remember going out to the lease and seeing doe, right off the bat, and I'm like, oh man, I practice on my target. Because here's how I look at it: I always aim for, if I can hit a baseball at 40 yards, all right, I'm good to go. That's my comfortability. I get out there, I'm like, man, a buck's as big as a target. And I saw a doe. I'm like, nope, not even close. And then the 200-pound deer walks out. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, they're even bigger than my target. So yeah, there's a lot more room for error as far as a big body deer compared to a small doe.
Well, if you guys are new to listening to this, be sure you subscribe. If you're listening on YouTube, be sure you hit that like button and share this with a buddy, because it actually means a lot more than you would think. And if you didn't know, especially on YouTube, subscribing is free. It doesn't cost you a thing. So I know a lot of people watch videos and that are not subscribed, or maybe you like the video and you're not subscribed, but let me tell you, it is free. It doesn't cost you a thing. All that does is make sure whenever you click on your little YouTube app, that one of the many thumbnails that are on your front page, if we post something that's new, it usually ends up on the top somewhere right there. So you don't miss a video, or if you're listening to the video version of this, the video podcast. But it would just help a lot if you guys go to sub to the podcast one, which you're watching it from now. And then also our primary one, where we have all of our cool hunts, gear reviews, and a lot of the BS that you see on here, but just in live action form.
And if you're listening on audio and you refuse to listen to video or watch video, please leave us a rating and review. We on Spotify, Google, Apple, wherever you listen. It helps us get boosted up in the charts, and when people search for certain topics, ours pops up first. So we really appreciate everybody listening, watching, viewing, subscribing. And if there's any kind of topics that you guys ever want to hear us talk about on the podcast, we have a sheet where we list all kinds of stuff we can talk about on the podcast. So feel free to send us any ideas. And I did want to mention, we have a Facebook group now, Hunter's Advantage Hunting Forum. There's like 1,300 members in that Facebook group now, which is pretty sweet. Like seems like there's 30 or 40 people that join that every day. We just talk about hunting, show success stories, talk about a bunch of different stuff in the Facebook group. So make sure to join the Facebook group, leave us a rating and review. And with that, I think we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Jesus loves you.
Smash that bell notification.
Bye.
Threw me off. I was like, what?